Do you ever feel like nobody truly understands what you're going through as a mom of a high needs child? You try to explain the daily struggles, the meltdowns, the exhaustion, the impossible choices you make just to get through the day. But instead of compassion, you're often met with advice, judgment, silence, or maybe even gaslighting. It's that sinking feeling in your gut when a doctor says, you just need to push him harder. Or when a friend says, aren't you enabling him? And in that moment, the shame rushes in. The thought plays on repeat. I'm doing it wrong. No one gets me. I'm all alone in this. If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. The wound of being unseen, unheard, and unvalidated runs deep for so many of us, and it gets triggered again and again as we parent kids who don't fit the mold. In this episode, we're going to talk about why this wound cuts so deep, where it really comes from, and the painful ways it shows up in our parenting. We'll explore how our children mirror this wound back to us and how through them we're being invited to heal. And most importantly, I'll share the number one practice that can help us shift from shame into healing so that we can show up differently for both ourselves and for our kids. So let's begin. Nobody understands me. No one gets what I'm going through. This was a thought playing on repeat in my head for years, leaving me feeling all alone in the exhausting journey of trying to help my PDA autistic child. Here I was doing everything possible to support him, and yet everywhere I turned, I received subtle backhanded comments or suggestions that I was either doing it wrong or not doing enough. It was constant triggering of shame and grief. I had just gotten off a call with my son's doctor, who truly cared and wanted to help us. But despite her good intentions, she would say things that left me feeling unseen, unheard, and not good enough. She would say things like, you need to push him a little bit more. You need better boundaries. Or let the behavior therapist come and show you what needs to be done. They are the experts and they will give you a step-by-step plan. She cared, but the lens through which she saw me was of a mother who was too accommodating, too soft, and too scared to push her child. This was the feedback I received even after pouring my heart and soul into explaining how much I was trying to not let my son control our basic needs. I would explain that within the context of safety and connection was when I could challenge him. I would share how even within some semblance of safety and regulation, he could still activate so severely that it impacted ours and his most basic needs of sleep, eating, and toileting. So it was intense, but the only message I walked away with was, you must be doing something wrong, and you're not the expert, the behavior therapists are the experts. Up until this point, I had refused behavior therapists for years because I didn't feel comfortable with their approaches. Instead, I let my intuition and my deeper knowledge and training in nervous system science, trauma, attachment, and the teachings of world-renowned child development experts like Dr. Stanley Greenspan, Dr. Ross Green, Dr. Mona Delahook, Dr. Stuart Shanker, and more guide me. What I knew to be true was this: safety and connection first, then challenge. But this is not how the world sees things. I was constantly pushing up against the deep conditioning of behaviorism that shaped the views of nearly everyone I worked with and interacted with. So this experience wasn't just with doctors or therapists for my son. It showed up with good friends too. Well-intentioned people who couldn't help their own implicit biases and conditioning, biases they weren't even aware of and never had to challenge because they were parenting more neurotypical kids. I remember one evening finally going out for dinner with friends after many months of being buried under my son's challenges. I shared that I still slept with my son. He was 13 at the time, and one friend said, aren't you enabling him and not teaching him to sleep on his own? Instantly, I felt that familiar drop in my gut, that well-known surge of shame whispering, I'm doing something wrong. I had just been explaining the intensity of my son's struggles, how without accommodations, even basic needs like sleep, eating, and toileting for him and for us would spiral. I was trying to help him feel safe in a life while carefully challenging him so that his needs didn't completely take over ours and that he could still hold on to his basic needs. But instead of meeting me in my pain and validating how hard it was, I was met with the conditioned response, focus on the one thing I was doing to help him feel safer and call it enabling. My heart sank. The thought resurfaced. Nobody understands me, not even my friends. Nobody could see the pain I was carrying. Nobody could see how hard I was working. All they seemed to notice was what I was doing wrong. So I want to be clear. I'm not sharing this to blame others or paint society as the enemy. No one is wrong or bad. Everyone is simply a product of their conditioning and programming. The truth is, we live in a culture built on behaviorism, one that teaches parents that they should have control over their kids. And so, everywhere we turn, as mothers of hypersensitive high needs kids, we encounter this treatment from parents and grandparents to siblings to friends. Many of us are left feeling utterly alone, like no one gets us or what we're going through. Sometimes we must muster the courage to explain, only to be met with blank stares or subtle comments implying we're wrong. Other times we just shut down, stop sharing, and pretend we're fine because we don't want to be the one dumping again. And because we can sense that people simply can't handle the intensity of our lives, so we don't share. Either way, whether we speak up or stay silent, the feeling lingers. No one understands me. No one gets it. I'm all alone. So this is why over and over again, mothers tell me the reason they want to work with me is because you're the only one who gets what I'm going through. I see the relief in their eyes and in their bodies when they share, and I resonate so deeply. I feel them. I know them because I am them. In that moment, their shame and grief lighten. They find acceptance. They feel more self-compassion for what they're carrying. And most importantly, they feel a little more, quote unquote, normal. They begin to believe maybe this is a normal part of the journey. And maybe there is nothing wrong with me after all. That shift is not just emotional, it's a deep nervous system regulating experience. So, as always, I believe it's vital to meet ourselves where we are in the present, to validate our own experiences, and to normalize them. What we experience as moms of high needs kids is very real and very hard, and this present experience does need to be validated. And there's always an and, at the heart of all of this is also something universal. As humans, we all carry a profound need to feel seen, heard, and validated. We long to know that others understand us, that our pain makes sense, and that we are allowed to have this experience and still be worthy of love and acceptance. So why do we all as humans have this deep need to feel seen, heard, and validated? So it's not just a preference, actually. It's very survival based. It's wired into us for as a deep need, as a deep human wiring to have connection, belonging, self-worth, and even safety. And when we feel acknowledged, it reassures us that our presence and our experiences matter. It strengthens our emotional well-being. It helps us trust others, and it deepens intimacy in relationships. When we don't receive it, we can be left with emptiness, self-doubt, and disconnection that erodes our ability to thrive. So the roots of this need is really comes from the survival. It's survival based in her early human societies. Okay, so for example, like our ancestors, you know hundreds of years ago in early human societies, being recognized and included by the tribe literally meant survival. Okay, if you weren't seen or acknowledged, you risked being left behind, which meant danger or even death. So belonging was actually protection. So very survival based. And, the other root of this need is this need to feel significance and self-worth. So to be seen and validated is to have our worth mirrored back. It affirms you matter, your feelings matter, your life matters. Okay. And then the roots is that it does help our emotional well-being. So when someone validates our feelings, it gives us permission to process them instead of shutting them down. This is vital for mental health and resilience. There are gifts of feeling seen and heard. We feel connection and belonging. So then that creates intimacy and a felt sense of being something a part of something bigger than ourselves. It gives us this feeling of empowerment. That's another gift that comes from being seen, heard, and validated. Because when our truth is acknowledged, we gain the courage to voice our needs, advocate for ourselves, and stand strong in our convictions. So think about how often we don't feel that way as moms, right? And then the gift of it is also trust and loyalty. So when we're genuinely listened to, that builds trust. It makes relationships safer, deeper, and more sustainable. And the cost is really, we're left, when we don't get that need met, we're left feeling empty, disconnected. Feel all alone and isolated, even when we have all these people around us, like in the middle of a crowd, but we're still left feeling isolated and alone. And then the other cost is that we feel insecure with low self-esteem. We feel like I don't matter, I'm too much, I'm not enough. So this is why the pain of not being seen cuts so deeply. It isn't just in our heads, it's wired into us as humans. Feeling seen, heard, and validated is a core human need. It's essential to both our emotional well-being and our physical health, and it wires how secure our nervous system feels in the world. Okay? So let's talk about the deeper wounds of these unfulfilled needs of being seen, heard, and validated. So what I feel like what is becoming more and more clear to me is that all of us carry deeper wounds from childhood, right? We all carry these wounds of not being seen, heard, or validated for who we truly are. So that to me is one of the biggest wounds, that if we weren't seen, heard, and validated for when our true self emerged, then that causes a lot of pain. So the pain of not being understood today is actually part of a much greater wound that was established many years ago. And now it's just being compounded by our current experiences of being dismissed or unseen. So every time I'm triggered in a situation, I do what's called the U-turn. Okay. So instead of focusing on what that other person did and getting all upset about that, that's valid too. But I try to do the U-turn and go inside and see what is being stirred up within me. And almost always, okay, pretty much always, it traces back to a childhood wound. So for me, there were many, and I share this with you because this is also what many of my clients, we're all the same. We all share and hold these wounds, okay? So for me, not being seen when I was angry and I expressed that anger, no one looked deeper to see that my anger was really masking hurt. or not being able to say no or set boundaries because it didn't feel like I was allowed to, right? So I wasn't seen or heard or validated for those very important, ways to like develop how to be with your anger. Your anger is there to put a boundary in place, to say no to something, or it's there to mask a hurt. Okay, so that the truth of the situation wasn't really validated. So I wasn't seen for what was the truth of the situation. I was also not seen for my sensitivities. I was actually really sensitive, but instead I was cast as the strong one who could handle anything because I had these, protective ways around me, and I would act like the strong one, but nobody really saw how sensitive I really was. And not being heard when I expressed interest in creative hobbies, or, learning something that was outside of the mold, and instead being told to be like kids who were more into math and science. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. And some of the deepest wounds happen when a parent doesn't spot the emergence of the true self and how it's trying to express. And instead, the parent gets scared of it and shuts it down or ignores it. And they only pay attention to and give love to the conditioned version of good behavior, the parts of you that fit in more, or that are more aligned with your parents' view of what a good kid or a successful kid is like. So when your true self emerged in certain ways, it would often get shut down. And that causes the biggest pain of all, because you're not seen, heard, and validated for who you truly are. And another one is when you react emotionally to something that hurt you. And this is very common, okay? You react emotionally, and instead of being seen and validated for your true emotions in that moment, you're mirrored that your experience is wrong, or that you're overreacting, or for some that you must have caused it, okay? So most of our triggering today as moms of high needs kids, this feeling of not being seen, heard, validated, and the haunting beliefs that we carry from all those wounds of things like nobody understands me, I'm all alone, I'm doing it wrong, I'm not good enough, I'm too much, I can't show others I'm in pain because they won't understand me or they'll reject me. These didn't start here in the present with our kids, okay? They began in our own childhood, and now the world mirrors them back to us again. Okay, and yet here's where the story begins to shift. The irony is that our kids live in a world that mirrors to them even more than it mirrors to us that they don't belong, that they aren't enough as they are, and they need to change to be accepted. They are rarely seen, heard, understood, or validated for who they truly are in any moment. All we want as mothers is to give them this experience, right? We want to let them feel like they belong, that they are loved as they are. And it is excruciating to watch them face rejection in a world so consumed by sameness. But this is also the very gift our children bring to us. They are teaching us that feeling seen, heard, validated, and like we belong actually starts within us. All their triggering behaviors are pushing us to heal our own wounds, to break generational patterns of shutting down emotions and controlling differences. They are guiding us towards compassion, full acceptance, and letting go of control. But it has to start with us. We need to change these patterns first. We need to show up for ourselves, to see ourselves, to hear ourselves, to validate ourselves with love and compassion. We need to trust our deeper intuition and inner wisdom about what is best for our kids and families, even when authorities or experts tell us otherwise. We need to heal the wounds of the past and past generations, okay, so that we can create a new experience for our children and a new world for them to live in. That begins with our full love and acceptance of ourselves first, and only then can we extend it fully to our kids. This is where pain turns into purpose. This is where pain shifts into healing. So, how do we begin to heal these wounds of not being seen, heard, or validated for who we are and what we're going through? The answer is you, your true self, can bring in self compassion and self acceptance and give yourself a new experience of feeling safe in the face of a world that mirrors to you that you're not enough for doing it wrong. Always remember that you are not your wounds. You are the awareness of your wounding experience, and you can give it a new experience that brings in safety and healing. So, I still have those doctor calls every 4 months or so, but there is a difference now compared to a few years ago. I still hear those subtle comments insinuating that I'm not pushing enough or that I'm doing it wrong or that the behavior therapists are the real experts instead of me, his own mother. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't drop me into a slump of dorsal vagal shutdown, weighed down by grief and shame. Instead, I go into the call knowing I will likely hear something along those lines, but I meet it more lightheartedly now. I can see the truth of the situation, that most people are conditioned and programmed and simply can't see it differently. I can take what I need from the call and let the rest go. I trust my own inner guidance and intuition about what's best for my child, and I don't question myself as much. Sometimes I even get off the call, share some of the comments with my husband, and laugh. My nervous system has become more flexible. My true self comes forward with clarity and perspective, and I can see that how other people view me and my situation has more to do with the lens of conditioning they carry than with the truth of how I'm doing as a mom. I can even feel gratitude for the doctor. Okay. Like that was huge for me. I can even feel gratitude for the doctor who genuinely tries her best to help us in the only way she knows how. What helped me get here was doing the deeper work of healing the past wounds and those deeply embedded beliefs that I was bad, wrong, and not enough, but pairing that with nervous system regulation work and a constant practice of self-compassion and self-acceptance, meeting myself as I am without judgment or criticism. So let's get into self-compassion. Okay. Self-compassion is not only my lifeline, it is also what research calls a master regulator of the nervous system. So studies by Kristen Neff and Chris Germer have shown what I've experienced in my own body with self-compassion. So what it does is it activates the soothing system, or what some have called the self-care network in your brain. So meeting ourselves with kindness shifts the body out of threat mode and into parasympathetic rest and digest state. Okay, which is your ventral vagal, calm, relaxed state where you want to be more with your child. It also supports vagal regulation. So self-compassion helps the vagus nerve do its job of restoring balance after stress, it giving us more flexibility to handle challenges then. It increases heart rate variability, which is called HRV. Higher HRV is a marker of resilience, and self-compassion practices are linked to improved HRV, meaning more ability to recover after stress. It quiets the fight or flight system. So self-criticism fuels that system with adrenaline and cortisol, all the stress hormones, but compassion softens the threat response. It reduces stress hormones and calms the body. And self-compassion creates an internal secure base, which is, ideally what we wanted to have when we were young, but didn't get through our experiences. So it's what we can give ourselves now, creating that internal secure base. So over time, self-compassion becomes like an inner attachment figure, the steady presence inside that says, I see you, I hear you, you make sense. For mothers living with chronic stress, grief, or trauma, this matters deeply. Self-compassion calms the body. It widens our window of tolerance, so it helps us be able to handle greater stresses and helps us hold our pain with warmth instead of shame. And just as important, self-compassion allows us to be with grief and let go of shame. Two of the hardest emotions we face over and over again as moms of high needs kids. So here's a simple practice of self-compassion that you can do on the regular is is my advice to you. So the first step is awareness first, right? We become aware of when we're triggered, and then we pause and we notice and we acknowledge what's happening inside. I feel dismissed right now. I feel this shame rising. This hurts. Okay. So you can notice the thoughts that are coming in, maybe even self-critical thoughts, and then notice where you feel that shame or that grief in your body. Notice where you feel it in your body. And then notice that you are not this feeling. You are the awareness of it. You can become the watcher of it. And you just notice that this is here. Okay, this makes sense. Okay, and here it is, here with me. I can help it to feel safe now. So the second step is you bring in a cue of safety. You can offer soothing touch. You can place a hand on your heart, your chest, or maybe sometimes shame is experienced in the gut. You can place your hand on your stomach or any place that feels comforting, giving yourself a little hug. So touch itself is a cue of safety for the nervous system. Then number 3 is speak to yourself kindly and acknowledge yourself. Say to yourself something like, this is painful and it makes sense that it hurts. And I'm not alone. Many mothers feel this way. Okay, because you're not alone. Many mothers do feel this way. And then you can say something like, I'm doing the best I can, and that is enough. Okay, or make these words your own, words that resonate with you and land for you and don't reactivate your inner critic, ideally. And then you just breathe and allow. You take a slow breath in and a slow, longer breath out through the nose. And let the emotions move through you without judgment. Notice if your body softens even just a little with this practice. So I invite you to give that a try and be with it and allow those emotions to release and continue to acknowledge yourself and be with it instead of taken over by it. This practice of self-compassion, it doesn't necessarily erase the pain from, being triggered or erase the pain altogether, but it does changes how you carry it. So instead of abandoning yourself and repeating the old wound of being unseen, you offer yourself the very thing you most need: validation, kindness, and safety. The wound of not being seen, heard, or validated runs deep for us as mothers of high needs kids. It echoes from our own childhood, gets mirrored back to us in doctors' offices, at school meetings, and even at the dinner table with friends. It can leave us feeling invisible, wrong, and all alone. But this wound doesn't have to define us. It can become the very doorway into healing. Our children, with all of their challenges and all of their brilliance, they are our teachers. They invite us, sometimes push us to look inward, to see ourselves, to hear ourselves, and to validate our own truth. When we choose self-compassion and self-acceptance, everything shifts. We begin to meet our pain with kindness instead of criticism. We soften shame and create room to process grief. We build a flexible nervous system that can handle the hard moments and still find the light. And as we do this, we not only heal ourselves, we also give our children the gift that they most need, the lived experience of belonging and being enough exactly as they are. This is how our pain turns into purpose. This is how generations of patterns begin to change. This is how we create the safe and loving world that our children deserve, starting from within ourselves. So if this episode resonated with you, please like, please comment, please share with others who may need this message too. Thank you.